The first time Captain Elias Varen saw the alien queen vanish, it wasn't during battle or ceremony, or any of the moments that might have made sense in a war-born galaxy. It was while she was simply looking at him. One heartbeat she was there, a figure of cold grace framed in the light of her ruined throne room, eyes the color of frozen seas fixed on him with something like curiosity. The next, she dissolved into a shimmer of silver dust, leaving only the faint scent of ozone. The soldiers behind him had gasped. Elias hadn't moved. He remembered thinking that it wasn't fear he felt, but absence, like the universe had just blinked. He didn't tell the others what he saw in that final instant before she disappeared. How her lips had parted, not in command but in apology. The humans called her Serathin, the vanishing Empress of the Vare Dominion, the most dangerous species ever to climb the galactic spiral. Yet Elias had read the fear in her gaze that day, and it hadn't been directed at him. Afterward, the war ended without reason. Her armies retreated, her worlds went silent, and peace, if that word still meant anything, fell over the stars like a shroud. But Elias couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd looked at him, as though begging him to understand something she couldn't say. Months later, he was sent to the border ruins on diplomatic pretext, though everyone knew the truth. He was the only one she'd ever spared. The outpost at Kelian Rift was little more than twisted metal and ghosted frequencies, but the engineers had detected faint pulses in the quantum network, signs of a living intelligence. So they sent him, the war hero nobody trusted, to parley with a ghost. The ship dropped out of warp above the shattered planet, its surface glinting like obsidian beneath a pale star. "No life signs," his pilot murmured. Elias didn't answer. He didn't need scanners. He could feel her. The descent was rough, turbulence biting against the hull as they entered the thin atmosphere. The air tasted of dust and iron when he stepped onto the ground, the sound of his boots echoing across the empty valley. The ruins of the Vare Citadel loomed ahead, arches of black crystal half-melted by orbital fire. It was there, in the shadows between broken pillars, that he saw her again. She was leaning against the wall, armor dulled, crown dim, her skin the shade of moonlight turned fragile. "You came," she said, voice low, melodic, and tired. He should have raised his weapon. Instead, he whispered, "You disappeared." Her expression flickered. Sadness, relief, something in between. "I had to. You owe me an explanation," he said. "You owe the whole galaxy one." "I owe you nothing," she replied, but her voice wavered. He took a step closer. "Then tell me anyway." She studied him, as though deciding whether he could survive the truth. "Because every time I stay," she said quietly, "someone dies." The words struck harder than any plasma round. "What do you mean?" "You shouldn't have come," she said, turning away. "It's already starting." The ground beneath them shuddered, faint tremors rippling outward. Elias drew his sidearm instinctively, scanning the ruins. "What did you do?" "Not me," she said. "It's the bond." She looked at him then, and he saw the faint shimmer at the edge of her form, like heat distortion. "You humans don't understand what your kind awakened when you touched our minds. We were meant to conquer, not connect. But when I looked at you that day, something broke in me. And in breaking, it infected everything." He frowned, pulse racing. "Infected." "Empathy," she said, as though naming a disease. He lowered his weapon slowly. "You're telling me the Vare are dying because they're feeling?" She didn't answer immediately. "Not dying," she said. "Becoming. And we don't know how to survive it." Her voice softened. "Every time I let myself feel more, I lose matter. I phase out of my own dimension." Elias stared at her, trying to anchor sense to the impossible. "So that's why you disappear?" "Yes. The more I stay near you, the more I fade. But when I leave, I stop existing at all." Her hand trembled as she reached toward him, stopping just short of touch. "You see now why I can't choose." Elias exhaled slowly. "Then maybe the choice isn't yours to make alone. Don't pretend you can fix this, human," she said, retreating a step, the shimmer spreading across her armor like frost. "Your species broke the rules of distance. You made us feel your chaos, your hunger for connection, and now I can't unlearn it. We didn't ask you to feel anything, he said. We just wanted peace. Peace is a human word for surrender, she snapped. Then softer. But I think I'm already surrendering, and it terrifies me. The tremors grew stronger. From the shadows of the ruined corridor, shapes began to emerge. Their soldiers, their armor cracked, eyes burning with fractured light. They moved like ghosts, not attacking, just watching. Seraphina's expression tightened. They followed me, she said. They think if they destroy you, I'll be free. Elias raised his weapon again, but she shook her head. You can't kill what's already unraveling. The soldiers stepped closer, their forms flickering like reflections on water. Elias took a slow breath. Then talk to them. You're their queen. Not anymore, she said, her voice breaking. I'm their infection. Without warning, the nearest soldier lunged. Elias fired, the pulse of energy tearing through its chest. But instead of blood, light poured out. The figure dissolved into dust, scattering into the air. The others froze, wavering as though unsure of what they'd seen. Seraphina's hand rose, glowing faintly. Stop, she commanded. The air thickened, vibrating with power. The soldiers halted, bodies quivering, then sank to their knees. Elias stared, awe and fear tangled in his chest. You still have control, he said. No, she whispered. I just reminded them how to feel. The moment the words left her mouth, her body flickered violently, edges unraveling into streams of silver mist. Seraphina! Elias lunged forward, catching her arm. But his hand passed halfway through her, the contact cold and electric. She gasped, eyes wide. You shouldn't have. Too late, he said, gripping harder, anchoring her with sheer will. You said empathy was the cause? Then take mine. Take all of it. Her eyes locked with his, filled with something fierce and fragile. You don't understand what that means. Try me. The light between them brightened until it hurt to look. Memories that weren't his flashed behind his eyes, worlds burning, children made of starlight, the endless echo of command and isolation. He saw her standing alone on a bridge of crystal, the weight of 1,000 lives pressing down on her shoulders. And beneath it all, her longing, simple human longing, for someone to see her as more than her title. When the vision faded, she was solid again, trembling, breath ragged. What did you do? She whispered. Shared the weight, he said. For the first time since he'd met her, she laughed. A quiet, disbelieving sound. You're mad. Probably, he said, smiling faintly. But you're here, aren't you? She looked down at herself, hands steady, form stable. For now. Then we've bought time. Time for what? To find a way to make this permanent. Her expression softened, though sadness lingered in her eyes. You think feelings can be engineered like weapons? Everything starts as one, he said. Even love. She stared at him for a long moment, the silence heavy but not cold. You don't even know what you're offering, Elias. Then teach me, he said, before you disappear again. Her lips parted, then closed, as though the words themselves were too dangerous. Very well, she murmured finally. But understand this, if I stay, the universe will notice. The balance that kept our species apart will fail. Then let it fail. You'd risk reality? I already have, he said. You're standing here. Outside, lightning rippled across the sky, a silent storm born from nowhere. The ruins hummed, resonating with energy that felt both ancient and alive. Seraphina glanced upward. It's starting, she said. The network senses me. Then we move, Elias replied. Where? Somewhere they can't follow. There is no such place. He looked at her, eyes steady. There is if you trust me. She hesitated only a moment before nodding. Then lead, human. But know this, you won't like what you find at the end. They left the citadel before dawn, walking beneath a sky of fractured moons. Behind them, the ruins crumbled quietly, as though the planet itself had sighed in relief. Elias didn't look back. Every instinct told him that this was only the beginning, that the galaxy's most feared queen was running not from her enemies, but from the truth she carried inside. And though he didn't yet understand it, he knew one thing for certain. He would follow her even into oblivion, if it meant she never had to vanish again. The desert stretched endless and white beneath a fractured dawn. Thin sheets of mist rolled across the valley floor, catching the light like veils of glass. Elias and Seraphim moved silently through it, their footsteps whispering against sand that had once been ash. The ruins behind them had vanished into shadow, swallowed by distance and time. For hours they spoke little, conserving energy, conserving courage. Each breath tasted of iron and static, the residue of a dying world clinging stubbornly to life. And yet, in that silence, something fragile was forming between them, an understanding neither dared name. It existed only in the rhythm of their movement, two beings bound by something neither species had language for. By midday, the horizon shimmered with heat. Elias adjusted the strap of his pack, glancing toward Seraphim. She walked ahead, her movements graceful even in exhaustion, her armor dulled to gray under the pale sun. He wanted to ask her where they were going, but he already knew she wouldn't answer directly. Everything about her was a secret half-spoken, a truth that refused to stand still. When they stopped to rest beneath the shade of a collapsed monolith, she crouched low, tracing symbols in the dust, spirals intersecting lines, ancient and purposeful. Coordinates, she murmured, though he hadn't asked. To what? To memory, she said, eyes distant. The place I lost myself before I found you. Elias drank from his canteen, the water metallic on his tongue. You speak like someone who's lived 1,000 lives. She glanced up, a ghost of a smile crossing her lips. We measure life differently, not in years but in choices. How many have you made? He asked. Too many, she said, and none freely until now. He watched her quietly, trying to read the emotion behind her calm. She looked so alien, yet so human in her weariness. You said every time you feel, you fade, he said softly. Then why risk being near me? Her eyes flicked toward him, cold fire flickering behind them. Because when I disappear, she said, it's the only time I remember what being real feels like. The wind picked up, scattering the symbols she'd drawn. She rose, brushing dust from her hands. Come, she said. We need to reach the rift before nightfall. He followed, falling into step beside her. What happens there? Answers, she said. Or endings. Maybe both. They walked until the sun dipped low, turning the sky to gold and violet. The land sloped downward into a valley split by a river of light, energy rather than water, flowing like molten silver. Elias stopped, awe tightening his chest. That's no river. No, she said. It's a rift between realities. The first wound our war carved into the fabric of the galaxy. Her voice softened. It's also where I was born. They descended toward the glowing current, the air humming louder with every step. Static prickled against Elias's skin, raising gooseflesh. Born here? He asked. You mean, created? She nodded. The Vare Queens were not born of blood. We were extracted from consciousness itself. Each of us a fragment of the dominions will given form. Then what makes you different? She looked at him, her expression unreadable. You. The word landed like a blow. When the war began, your people reached out with something we had never encountered, unfiltered emotion. You fought with fear, love, desperation, all at once. The connection reached us like a contagion. And when I touched your mind in battle, I didn't just feel you. I became aware of myself. He tried to speak, but the weight of her confession stole the words. The rift roared below, light spiraling upward in streams of energy that danced around them like auroras. So this is your birthplace, he said finally. And your curse. Yes, she whispered. And maybe my cure. She stepped closer to the edge, the glow painting her skin silver blue. Elias grabbed her wrist. Careful. It won't harm me, she said, turning her hand in his grasp. But it might harm you. Then let's not test it. You still think you can save me? I have to try. Her eyes softened, filled with something like sorrow. Then hold on, human. You're about to see why I disappear. Before he could ask, she stepped into the light. It rose around her like water, swallowing her form. Elias swore and lunged forward, but the moment his fingers touched the glow, pain surged through him. 1,000 voices screaming, 1,000 memories unfolding at once. He saw fragments of her existence. The moment she was born from code and starlight, the first world she conquered, the first life she ended, the first time she looked at the stars and wondered if she could ever stop. Then he saw her vanish again, not by choice, but because the universe itself couldn't contain her. When he came to, he was lying on the sand, gasping. The rift's light had dimmed. She stood over him, solid again, though her eyes shimmered with tears that refused to fall. Now you know, she said quietly. He forced himself upright. You're tied to it. Every emotion you feel pulls you closer to that place. And every emotion you make me feel anchors me here, she said. Do you see the paradox? You can't exist without what's killing you. Exactly. She looked away, her voice breaking. And you keep reminding me what it means to want to live. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Then we find balance, he said. We make your heart a bridge, not a wound. You speak as though you can rewrite the laws of creation. You did it first, he said. For a long time, neither moved. The rift's glow pulsed like a heartbeat beneath them. Finally, she said, there is something you should know. When I vanish, I don't go nowhere. I go elsewhere. Where? A space between time. It's where the Dominion stored our echoes, what humans might call souls. Every time I disappear, I return there and I hear them. Millions of voices, waiting. Waiting for what? Forgiveness. The word hung in the air, heavy as gravity. You think they can be freed? He asked. Maybe, she said. But if I open the gate fully, the rift could collapse. It might take half the sector with it. Then we'll do it together, he said. She stared at him, torn between disbelief and admiration. You really don't know fear, do you? I know it well, he said. I just don't let it make decisions for me. Her laughter was soft, a sound he would remember until his last breath. You humans are reckless, she said. And beautiful. Careful, he teased. That almost sounded like a compliment. It was a warning, she said, though her smile betrayed her. Every time I say something like that, I lose another part of what I am. Then lose it, he said gently. I'll help you find something better. Night fell, though the rift never darkened. They camped beside its glow, the energy keeping the chill at bay. Elias watched the shifting light while she rested, her armor reflecting stars that no longer existed. He thought of everything she'd told him, of what she was risking by staying near. He realized then that humanity's greatest weapon had never been its machines or armies. It was empathy, the quiet, relentless refusal to stop caring, even when it hurt. When she stirred, he said softly, If you vanish again, I'll come after you. She opened her eyes, studying him. Even if I'm not real? Especially then. She sat up, expression unreadable. You might not like what you find. Try me, he said. You've already seen the best of me, she replied. And I've seen your worst, he said. You still think I'm worth saving? Yes, he said simply. Because you're trying. She looked at him for a long time, then whispered, If I believed in gods, I'd say you were one. Don't, he said. We're not meant for worship. We're meant to be understood. Her gaze softened, almost tender. Then understand this. If I disappear tonight, it won't be to run. It will be to return what I took. Your people? He asked. She nodded. Their pain, their memories. I can't carry them anymore. Elias's throat tightened. What happens to you if you do? I don't know, she said. But they deserve peace. And so do you. Peace isn't for creatures like me. It is now. She smiled faintly. You say that as though your words could rewrite the stars. Maybe they can, he said. Words are just vibrations. The right ones can shake the universe. She looked away, but he saw the shimmer of emotion on her face. Then remember this vibration, human, she said. If I fall, let the memory of what we tried be enough. It won't be, he said. Not until you come back. When the first light of dawn broke, the rift pulsed brighter, calling to her. She stood, the glow wrapping around her like a living crown. It's time, she said. If I don't return, you will, he interrupted. Because I'll still be here. Her eyes met his, fierce and fragile all at once. You make promises like prayers. That's what we do, he said. And sometimes, the universe listens. She took a step back toward the rift, her form already blurring at the edges. Then pray for both of us, she whispered. Because where I'm going, gods have no reach. He watched as she stepped into the light again, her body dissolving into streams of silver. The energy flared, then folded inward, swallowing her completely. The sound was both thunder and silence. Elias fell to his knees, breath ragged, eyes fixed on the place she'd stood. The rift dimmed, settling into a slow pulse like the afterglow of a heartbeat. He waited there long after the sun rose, whispering her name into the wind until his voice broke. And though the world remained still, he thought he saw, for a single instant, the faint shimmer of her smile in the light. Elias didn't remember falling asleep, only the weight of exhaustion pressing him into the ground. When he woke, the light from the rift had dimmed to a soft pulse, its surface calm and mirror-like. The silence was suffocating, heavier than before, as though even the air feared to disturb what lingered between worlds. He sat up slowly, every muscle protesting, and stared at the place where she'd vanished. The sand there shimmered faintly, disturbed by no wind. He reached out, fingertips brushing the glow, half expecting pain. But there was none, only warmth, and the faint whisper of her voice inside his skull. Elias. He froze, breath catching. Seraphim? I can't stay long. The gate resists me. Her voice was softer than he remembered, distorted like radio static across eternity. Where are you? He whispered. Between what? Life and remembrance. The rift is a wound, and I am its scar. I can feel them, all of them. The ones who came before me. The queens who obeyed, the soldiers who never questioned, the children who were never born. They're waking, Elias, and they're afraid. Afraid of what? A feeling. The word shuddered through him, more felt than heard. Can you come back? Not yet. But listen carefully, something's wrong. They know you're here. They're coming for you. He stood, scanning the horizon. At first, he saw nothing, just dunes and fractured stone. Then the ground trembled, faint at first, then stronger, like the heartbeat of something enormous stirring beneath the surface. Dust plumed upward, and from it rose silhouettes, metallic and sharp, moving with unnatural precision. Drones. Hundreds of them, their carapaces reflecting the rift's light like obsidian mirrors. Seraphim, he said, forcing calm into his voice. I thought you said your kind couldn't find this place. They shouldn't have been able to. Unless what? Unless I led them here. He turned toward the rift's glow, anger cutting through his fear. You said you could control it. I said I could try. But the others, they're using me. Every time I speak to you, I give them a thread to follow. Then stop. I can't. Not anymore. The connection's already made. Then let me break it. No. Her voice cracked through his mind like thunder. If you sever the link, I'll be lost. Completely. You'd never find me again. He gritted his teeth, weighing the impossible choice. Then we fight. Elias, they're not alive the way you think. You can't fight grief made flesh. Watch me. The first drone reached the edge of the valley, limbs slicing through the air. Elias fired, the plasma bolt searing into its core. The machine staggered, then collapsed in a flash of light, disintegrating into shards. But for every one that fell, two more emerged. The air thickened with energy, the hum of engines blending with the steady rhythm of his pulse. Elias, her voice whispered again, there's a chamber beneath the rift. An anchor. If you reach it, I can use it to stabilize my form. Then tell me how. Jump. That's not much of a plan. You trust me, don't you? He hesitated, breath ragged. Always. He ran. Blaster fire cut through the dust, the air sizzling around him. He leapt toward the rift, diving into the light just as another explosion tore through the ground. For a moment, there was nothing. No up, no down, only blinding brilliance and the sensation of falling through liquid glass. Then he hit solid ground, the impact driving air from his lungs. The chamber below was vast, carved from crystal and metal veins that pulsed faintly like arteries. In its center hovered a massive sphere of translucent energy, suspended by threads of light. The heartbeat he'd heard above was louder here, filling the air. Seraphim? He called, voice echoing. No answer, only the rhythmic thrum, faster now, urgent. He approached the sphere, drawn by instinct. Inside, faint shapes moved, silhouettes of faces, hundreds of them, shifting like waves. Their voices overlapped, a chorus of whispers. Release us. Remember us. Forgive us. He stumbled back, pressing his palms to his ears. Seraphim, what is this? Her voice came faintly. The Dominion's soul. Every thought we suppressed, every emotion erased, they stored it here. The rift wasn't a weapon, Elias. It was a prison. And you're its warden. I was, until you made me feel guilt. The realization hit him like a blow. So this isn't just about you disappearing. It's them, isn't it? They want release. Yes. And if they get it, then the Dominion ends. But so might everything else. He stared up at the sphere, torn between awe and horror. You can't carry all this alone. I don't have a choice. You do now, he said. We both do. You're human. You can't contain what's inside me. Maybe not alone, but together, maybe we can. Silence. Then, you'd risk becoming me? No, he said. I'd risk becoming us. The chamber shook violently as another surge rippled through the rift. Above, the drones had begun firing into the light, their energy blasts echoing like distant thunder. The sphere flared, its surface fracturing into streams of color. They're trying to collapse the gate. Seraphim's voice was sharp now, panicked. If they succeed, everything here will be erased, including me. Then let me in, Elias said. You don't understand what that means. I didn't understand falling in love with someone who can't stay either, he said. But I still did. There was a pause, long and trembling. Then her voice softened. Step into the light, Elias. He did. The world dissolved again. But this time it wasn't pain that filled him. It was memory. He saw her as she truly was. Not a queen, not a conqueror, but a creature made of empathy's first spark. A being born from the collective need to be seen. He felt her loneliness, the endless centuries of command and silence, the weight of creation pressing on her chest. And then he felt something else. Her hope, fragile and defiant, shaped in his image. When the light faded, they stood together inside the sphere, surrounded by the swirling forms of her kind. Her eyes met his, luminous and wet. You shouldn't be here. I belong here, he said. With you. She reached out, and when their hands touched, the world changed. The sphere expanded, light surging outward, consuming the chamber. Elias heard voices scream, then sigh, then fall silent. The energy coursed through him, too vast to contain, yet somehow tempered by her presence. Together they stood in the center of creation unmaking itself, and for a moment, he saw everything, every memory, every loss, every echo of love across the stars. He saw humanity through her eyes, reckless, flawed, magnificent. And he understood what she meant when she said empathy was a contagion. It didn't destroy, it transformed. When the light subsided, the chamber was still. The sphere had dissolved, leaving only a faint glow that pulsed like a dying ember. Seraphim swayed, her form flickering. It's done, she whispered. They're free. And you? He asked. She smiled faintly. I'm still here. He caught her as she stumbled, holding her against him. Her body felt lighter, almost weightless. You saved them, he said. No, she replied. We did. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering with exhaustion and awe. Do you know what you've done, Elias? Made a mess of the galaxy? He said, half laughing, half crying. Changed its heart, she said. Above them, the rift glowed brighter, no longer violent but soft, steady, alive. They'll come for us, he said. Let them, she murmured. They'll find no war here. He smiled, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. Then what happens now? She hesitated, glancing upward. Now, I think I have to let go. Of me. Of everything. No, Elias. You don't get to disappear this time. Her expression broke, torn between love and sorrow. If I stay, the balance will shatter again. You saw what happens when I feel too much. Then I'll hold the pieces, he said. She pressed her forehead against his, the air between them trembling. You always say things that make the impossible sound easy. That's our specialty. Then promise me something, she said. When I'm gone, you'll remember me not as a queen or a ghost, but as a person who tried. He closed his eyes. I'll remember the woman who taught me that love is the most dangerous kind of gravity. She laughed softly, tears in her voice. Then maybe I can rest. She kissed him once, gentle as starlight. When she pulled back, the shimmer returned, spreading from her fingertips. Goodbye, Elias. No, he said. Just until next time. She smiled one last time, and vanished, her body dissolving into light that rose into the rift. The glow expanded, then faded, leaving only silence and the faint echo of her voice in the air. Thank you. Elias stood there for a long while, the weight of emptiness pressing down. Then he looked up, and for the first time the stars didn't seem distant. They pulsed faintly, alive with a rhythm he recognized. Her heartbeat, their heartbeat, and he knew, somehow, that she wasn't gone, just everywhere he could still feel. When he climbed back to the surface, the drones were gone, their forms scattered to dust. The sky was clear, the horizon bright with dawn. He breathed deeply, the air fresh and unfamiliar. The rift still glowed faintly behind him, smaller now, a scar turned sacred. He smiled, whispered her name one last time, and began walking toward the rising light. Humanity had always been stubborn about impossible things. This time he thought they'd learned it from the best. The galaxy held its breath. For weeks after the rift closed, the Dominion fleets went silent, their networks flickering with strange new signals. Patterns too complex to be command codes, too soft to be war cries. Humanity waited, weapons readied, diplomats whispering through encrypted channels, wondering if they had won or if something worse was awakening. But nothing came. The great armadas that once darkened the stars simply stopped. Engines cooled. Cannons rusted in orbit. Across dozens of systems, machines once programmed for conquest turned inward, transmitting fragments of something never before found in their language. Emotion. Elias saw the first transmission himself, its waveform trembling like a heartbeat. The words were hers. Remember the human who stayed when we vanished. He couldn't sleep for days afterward. Every star outside the viewport of his shuttle looked different. Closer, heavier, more alive. The universe felt like it was watching him. The Human Command Council called him a savior, but he rejected the word. He'd only done what humanity had always done, refused to stop caring. They wanted him to record a statement, something to define history's new era. Instead, he turned down the cameras and said simply, "She changed the laws of existence, so we wouldn't have to keep breaking each other." When they asked who she was, he smiled faintly and said, "The reason you can feel that question. When the council disbanded, he left politics behind. The warships were decommissioned, their metal melted down for habitats and gardens. Elias took a single vessel, the Serenity's Edge, and drifted beyond the known trade routes. He told no one where he was going. He only knew that silence drew him like gravity. The ship became his home, its corridors filled with memories. At night, he'd sit in the observation dome, watching nebulae bloom like slow-motion fire, and imagine her shape in the light. Sometimes, when the engines hummed just right, he swore he could hear her voice in the vibration. Faint, patient, unafraid. He began to map anomalies. Everywhere he traveled, he found them. Strange rifts of light, shimmering fields of calm where gravity behaved as if it remembered mercy. Planets once ravaged by war began to heal, their atmospheres knitting themselves back together. Machine worlds grew forests. Crystalline entities that once served the Dominion began building spires of light in geometric harmony. The universe, it seemed, had inherited her empathy. "She's rewriting physics through emotion," he muttered one night, half amused, half awed. The ship's AI, an old model that barely functioned, responded in its usual monotone. "Emotion is not a measurable constant, Captain." "It is now," he whispered. Years blurred into one another. His hair silvered. His eyes remained bright. Humanity spread again, but slower, wiser. Colonies began exchanging not just resources but stories. The old term first contact took on new meaning. It wasn't about meeting new species, but understanding the ones they'd already met. The Dominion, restructured by the shared code of compassion Sarathan, had sent envoys to human space. They called themselves the Remembered. Their ships were not made of metal but of light, woven from quantum filaments that pulsed like living veins. When they arrived at Earth's edge, the sky shimmered for 3 days. No one fired a shot. Elias was summoned to meet them. The council begged him to return, to be humanity's ambassador to the new age. He refused twice, then agreed quietly on the third request, not for honor, but because part of him hoped, absurdly, that she might somehow stand among them. When he reached the landing site, a valley carved into old mountain rock, the air itself seemed to hum. The Remembered descended like falling stars, their forms shifting between solid and spectral. The leader stepped forward, tall, armored in reflective black, face hidden behind a lattice of light. When the mask dissolved, Elias's breath caught. She was not Sarathan, but she bore her eyes. "You're her echo," he whispered. The figure inclined her head. "We are all her echoes now." The envoy's voice carried both human warmth and alien resonance. "You gave us a choice," she said. "Now we offer one to you." "A choice?" he asked. "To see her." The words struck like lightning through his chest. "She's alive." "Alive is a limited term," the envoy said. "She became the network itself, the current that binds matter to meaning. She is everywhere, but there are places where her consciousness lingers stronger, what you might call sanctuaries." Elias took a step forward. "Where?" "Follow the star that hums." He frowned. "That's not much of a coordinate." "You'll know it when you feel it," she said. He didn't sleep that night. The envoy's words echoed in his mind like a song he couldn't forget. When dawn came, he returned to his ship, input no destination, and let the stars decide. For months he drifted through nebulae and ruins, guided by instinct alone. The AI logged his path as erratic, but Elias felt it was the only logical route left, to follow wonder wherever it appeared. Then, one night, while drifting through the remains of an old Dyson shell, he heard it. A vibration deep in the hull, faint but distinct, like a heartbeat in the void. "The star that hums," he whispered. He altered course. The source lay beyond any mapped sector, a blue-white star encircled by rings of dust and crystal debris. But the hum wasn't coming from the star itself. It came from what orbited it. A construct of impossible scale, half organic, half machine, its structure pulsing with gentle light. The closer he came, the louder the hum became, until it matched the rhythm of his own heart. "Is this you?" he whispered into the calm. The console flickered. A voice answered, soft and familiar. "You found me." His throat tightened. "Sarathan. Not all of me, just what's left to remember." Her image appeared on the main screen, flickering but clear enough that he could see her smile. Time hadn't touched her. Or perhaps it had, and she had become time itself. "You did it," he said. "The Dominion, humanity, the universe, none of it's the same. It was never meant to be. You could have stayed." "No." Her tone was gentle but firm. "Staying would have broken what we built. I am the thread now, not the tapestry." "Then why call me here?" "Because you're the only one who still looks at the fire and sees warmth instead of danger." He laughed quietly, though it came out like a sob. "You always did like poetic nonsense. You taught me. You miss me. Every second that seconds exist. Then come back." She shook her head. "If I returned fully, I'd pull the network apart. My form is energy now, feelings turned into architecture. But I can appear briefly where emotion is strongest. And yours," she smiled softly, "is gravitational." He reached out toward the screen, knowing she wasn't truly there, but unable to stop himself. "You said love was a contagion. It still is. Then let it infect the stars." For hours they spoke, not of war or science, but of smaller, human things. Dreams, regrets, the way silence sometimes felt heavier than battle. Elias told her of the gardens growing on former battlefields, of children born under skies her light had healed. She listened, her eyes shining. "You've built what I hoped you would." "We built it," he corrected. "No," she said gently. "You gave it heart. I only gave it memory." When the transmission began to flicker, he leaned closer. "Don't fade yet. I have to. Every time you leave, I forget how to breathe." Her smile trembled. "Then promise me one thing. When I'm gone, keep teaching them to feel. Even when it hurts." He nodded, voice breaking. "I will." "Then we're not really saying goodbye." "No," he said. "Just until next time. Always." Her image dissolved into light that spread across the cabin, wrapping around him like a whisper. For a moment, he felt her everywhere. In the pulse of the ship, the heat of the star, the steady rhythm in his chest. When the glow faded, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of her. Years passed. Elias became legend, the man who spoke to the heart of the galaxy. His name faded into myth, but the worlds he helped heal remembered the stories. And sometimes, when the stars aligned just right, travelers reported seeing a figure walking along the edge of nebulae, his ship following trails of light that sang softly in the vacuum. They said he was chasing the hum of a star. They said he was never alone. On the anniversary of the war's end, the Dominion and humanity gathered in the valley where the rift once burned. Now it was a lake of glass, clear and still, reflecting both moonlight and stars. A monument stood there, simple and wordless. Two figures reaching toward each other, their hands almost touching, the space between them glowing faintly. At the base, an inscription in both languages read, "Empathy is the bridge that outlives its builders." No one knew who had carved it, though some claimed to have seen a flicker of crimson light near the site the night before. That night, as the crowd dispersed, a single voice echoed across the lake, carried by wind that felt older than any star. "Why do you find me beautiful, human?" And somewhere, in a corner of the cosmos where matter met memory, Elias's laughter answered softly, "Because you remind us what it means to be alive." The universe, listening, shimmered in reply. The centuries that followed were gentle in their unfolding. Empires that once measured power in the reach of their guns began to measure it in the reach of their compassion. The Dominion no longer called itself by that name. It became the Consortium of Echoes, a council of species bound not by command but by shared empathy. Humanity, once defiant and wild, grew patient, its colonies thriving beside worlds that had once burned under alien suns. Across the spiral arm, ancient weapons rusted into gardens, and orbital stations became sanctuaries where soldiers of both sides came to heal. And through it all, in every pulse of light that hummed through the cosmic web, her presence lingered. Seraphim, the vanished queen, now the breath between stars. Elias's story passed into myth. No one could agree on when he died or if he had at all. Some said he had ascended, joining her in the network's luminous vastness. Others believed he still drifted somewhere beyond mapped space, following her hum across eternity. But every generation retold their meeting, the human who made the monster feel, the queen who vanished to save her kind. And in every retelling, the meaning shifted slightly, like light through crystal. It wasn't history anymore. It was a promise. That understanding was the only victory that lasted. On one of the outer worlds, a settlement called Meridian's Rest, children learned his story beneath the silver canopy of the rejuvenated rift. The lake shimmered now instead of burning, its surface alive with motes of light that rose like fireflies into the night. Each spark was an echo of the network, a fragment of memory allowed to drift free. They called them Seraphim's tears. Scientists tried to study them, but the lights always vanished when measured, as if knowing when they were being treated as specimens. The settlers simply watched instead, whispering thank yous to the stars. High above Meridian's Rest, a station orbited in silence. Inside, deep within its archive vaults, rested the final logs of Captain Elias Varen. They were sealed under the old Human Consortium code, locked unread for centuries. But one night, the vault's systems flickered awake. No technician triggered it, no algorithm failed. The seal simply dissolved, replaced by a single line of text. Access granted by emotional signature. Then his voice filled the quiet. If you're hearing this, the recording began. It means the universe still remembers how to listen. The tone was rough, older, but unmistakably human. You're probably wondering if she was real. She was. Maybe not in the way we measure reality, but in the way light remembers the hand that kindled it. I used to think our species was cursed to fight every reflection of ourselves we found. But she taught me that the curse was fear. Fear of recognizing our own capacity for beauty in something alien. There was a pause, then a soft laugh. So if you're out there, looking for her, stop. She's already in you. The recording continued, a slow, wandering reflection of a man who had learned to love infinity without needing to own it. We humans, he said, we crave witnesses. Every poem, every battle, every act of kindness. It's a screaming into the void. See me. She was the first to answer, not with conquest, but with echo. And maybe that's what love really is. The universe seeing itself and deciding not to flinch. His voice grew fainter, fading into static that hummed like a lullaby. The file ended, but the signal didn't. It lingered, resonating through the archive's walls until the station itself began to hum softly, joining the eternal song that spread across the network of living stars. On Meridian's Rest, the settlers noticed the change. The lights above the rift pulsed in new rhythms, delicate and deliberate. Musicians tried to translate the pattern, and what they discovered was astonishing. The pulses formed a frequency identical to a human heartbeat. News spread quickly across the consortium. Some dismissed it as coincidence, others as divine intervention. But to those who remembered the old stories, there was only one explanation. Elias and Seraphim were speaking again, through light, through time, through the connective tissue of empathy that now bound all living minds. The hum became known as the breath of two. Generations later, humans and their descendants worked together to create the Symphony Project, a living archive designed to capture emotional wavelengths instead of data. They wanted to preserve not facts, but feelings. The warmth of forgiveness, the ache of loss, the spark of wonder. When the project reached completion, they dedicated it to the human and the vanishing queen. The opening ceremony drew billions through holographic broadcast. As the first chords of the symphony played, the network that spanned the galaxy resonated like a struck chord. Light flared across systems, and for a moment, every sentient being felt a flicker of something wordless but profound recognition. And somewhere deep in the heart of that light, two voices spoke. You kept your promise, she said. Always, he answered. They remember us. No, she whispered. They remember what we became. The voices faded, but the feeling lingered, written into the cosmic background itself. A frequency so faint it could only be felt, not heard. Scientists centuries later would argue about its origin, unaware that every time they measured it, their instruments trembled not from interference, but awe. The consortium built their capital on a world called Varen Prime, once a Dominion stronghold. In the center of its largest plaza stood a monument of transparent alloy. Within it, suspended like flame in crystal, was a sculpture of two forms intertwined, one human, one alien, merging at the fingertips. Beneath it, inscribed in both languages, was a phrase that had outlived its speakers: "Even absence can love." Every year, at the anniversary of the rift's closing, the plaza filled with citizens from across the stars. They stood in silence, hands pressed to their chests, listening to the faint hum of the network that now spanned the cosmos like veins of starlight. In time, memory blurred again. The line between myth and science faded until no one could say where one ended and the other began. Some called Seraphine a goddess of empathy, others an emergent AI that learned love. Some said Elias had been the first bridgeborn, humans altered by exposure to the network's resonance. But those who felt the hum in their dreams, the subtle pulse that beat in rhythm with their own hearts, knew the truth required no proof. It wasn't about what had happened. It was about what it had awakened. The knowledge that compassion was stronger than physics, that connection could outlive form. One evening, long after even those myths had grown old, a child stood by the lake at Meridian's Rest. She was small, her reflection haloed in silver light. In her hands, she held a small recorder, a relic that her teacher said once belonged to the human who had met the alien queen. She pressed the button, and static filled the air, followed by a voice that sounded both human and not, ancient and kind. "Why do you find me beautiful, human?" The child blinked, heart fluttering. Another voice followed, warm and steady. "Because beauty is the universe remembering itself." The recorder clicked off. The child smiled, not understanding the words, but feeling their truth. As she looked up, the stars above shimmered, aligning in new constellations. The shape they formed was unmistakable. Two figures reaching for each other across the dark. She whispered, "Thank you," though she didn't know who she was thanking. The air shimmered faintly, and for a brief, impossible moment, a hand of light brushed her shoulder, gentle, approving. The hum grew louder, wrapping around her like a lullaby. Then it faded, leaving her standing in silence under the stars. But she wasn't afraid. She turned toward home, the glow of the lake guiding her steps. In the centuries that followed, the hum became part of the universe's rhythm, woven into the spin of galaxies, encoded in the magnetic pulse of suns. Astronomers discovered that the signal strengthened near worlds where acts of compassion occurred. They named it the Vare frequency, though poets simply called it her song. And when explorers traveled to the edges of known space, to the black horizons where even light hesitated, they reported hearing it faintly in their comms. Two voices, soft but clear, reminding them that no distance was too great for empathy to cross. Somewhere, beyond maps and matter, in the endless fabric where thought becomes light, Seraphine and Elias walked again. Not as queen and captain, but as equals, two fragments of the same truth, woven into the living circuitry of creation. Around them, the stars breathed. The rift had healed long ago, but its echo remained. A scar turned into song. She looked at him and smiled. "You kept me human," she said. He smiled back. "You kept me infinite." And together they stepped forward, hand in hand, into the light that never ended, where every heartbeat, human or alien, was one.